Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Crime Whisper. I know many of you listen to these stories to relax, or even fall asleep. So before we dive in, take a moment to leave a comment, and tell me where in the world are you listening from. If you're enjoying the case, don't forget to like and subscribe. Now, let's get comfy, unwind, and begin tonight's story. Story 1, a chilling double. Murder in South Korea. February 26, 2019. A man named Lee Hee-jin walked into the Donggan police station in Anyang City, South Korea. He was worried he hadn't heard from his parents, his 62-year-old father and 58-year-old mother, and feared something had gone terribly wrong. But as many familiar with South Korean cases know, missing person reports involving the elderly often don't receive much urgency. The police, citing their experience, believed it was likely a simple misunderstanding. Elderly people didn't just vanish in pairs, and often, such cases turned out to be incidents or temporary confusion. They told Hee-jin to wait, assuring him his parents had probably just gone on a short, unannounced trip. 2 long weeks passed with no word. On March 16th, Hee-jin returned to the police, this time desperate. To their credit, the police responded quickly. Just 2 days later, on March 18th, they made a horrifying discovery at an apartment complex in Gwangyang. Investigators found the body of Hee-jin's mother, Sunya, hidden inside a wall cabinet. She was severely decomposed, but the nightmare wasn't over. That same afternoon, a report came from rural Pangta. A warehouse manager had reported a foul smell that had been bothering locals for days. Inside a refrigerator, they found another body this time, Hee-jin's father, Lee Daegu. The forensic reports were even more chilling. Both victims had been brutally tortured. Their injuries were so extensive that examiners couldn't even determine an exact cause of death. It wasn't just murder, it was prolonged intentional cruelty. Shockingly, both were believed to have been killed on February 25th, the day before. Hee-jin first contacted the police. A missed chance and a mysterious man if the police had acted sooner, they might have recovered vital evidence. But their delay meant key clues were likely lost. Still, investigators pressed on. To them, it looked like a revenge killing. They began tracking down possible motives and suspects. Local villagers near the warehouse shared an odd story. On the night of February 25th, some had noticed a strange man burning a bag behind the building. He was short, overweight, and ran off the moment he saw them. They didn't think much of it at the time, but in hindsight, it seemed likely that this was the killer. But no one, neighbors, friends, or family could identify anyone matching that description. Hee-jin, however, had his own suspicions. A sudden windfall ended clued that same morning, February 25th. Hee-jin had sold his Bugatti Veyron for a hefty sum, 1.5 billion won, around $1.2 million. He gave his parents 500 million won, about $400,000, in cash for safekeeping. Just hours later, they were murdered and now a man was seen burning a bag. The money was missing, and so was the bag. Bank records showed no activity. This was starting to look like a calculated robbery, not a random revenge attack. But there was something else, something that didn't sit right with investigators. The wealthy son and a modest home. If Hee-jin was wealthy enough to own a boot, why did his parents live in a modest apartment? That's when police discovered that Hee-jin had an older brother, Lee Hee-in. Suddenly, everything made sense. The rise and fall of a fraudster back in the late 2000s. Lee Hee-in was a rising star in Korea's financial world. Nicknamed the Warren Buffett of Korea, he became a regular on TV, touted as a financial genius. He claimed to be a university graduate, a successful investor, and even a future distributor for Lamborghini and Bugatti. But it was all a lie. He had no degree, no credentials, and no luxury car deals. His wealth and public image were fabricated to lure investors. His family helped him maintain the illusionist, especially his mother, Sunya, who frequently appeared on his paid investment shows. Thousands lost everything. Some investors were driven to bankruptcy and worse. Eventually, Hyun was caught and sentenced to prison for massive fraud, but the damage had already been done. While many were left devastated, the Lee family kept a significant portion of the money and lived quietly. Back to the present. A fake businessman and a sinister plot. Fast forward to the night of the murders. Heejin received a message from his mother, saying she'd met a Harvard-educated businessman named Kim Young-ho and wanted Heejin to speak with him about a potential partnership. Heejin messaged Young-ho, and during their chat, accidentally triggered a video call. A round-faced man appeared briefly. But here's the twist. The forensic timeline said his mother had already been dead by then, which means the person messaging him wasn't his mother, it was the killer. Police worked quickly. Based on the video call and villagers' descriptions, they identified the suspect, Kim Daeon. He had posed as Young-ho to contact the family. CCTV also revealed he wasn't alone. He had 3 accomplices. But Kim Daeon was arrested first, and unlike many criminals, he didn't resist. He confessed. The shocking motive: Kim wasn't just any fraud victim. He was once a successful businessman himself, running a yacht company in the US after losing everything. He returned to Korea and was scammed by Lee Hae-in. His revenge was deeply personal. But as police dug deeper, a new layer emerged. The 3 accomplices weren't killers at all. They were Chinese Korean laborers lured by a fake job listing. They fled the country once they realized they were being asked to move dead bodies. This changed everything. Kim Daeon had lied. He wasn't just the mastermind. He was the sole murderer. The real motive, greed, not revenge, had been posing as a private investigator for over a year, gathering information on the Lee family. He had bugged their car, tracked their movements, and learned about Heejin's car sale. He killed the parents for money and planned to target Heejin next. He even coordinated with an escape broker, preparing to flee to the Philippines. Eventually, the truth came out. He was charged with murder, robbery, corpse concealment, and trespassing. The court sentenced him to life in prison. A bitter ending, ironically. While Daeon was locked away, Lee Han-whose scams sparked this tragedy, was released from prison. Did he turn over a new leaf? Unfortunately not. By 2023, he was back to his old tricks, this time using cryptocurrency to defraud people. He was arrested again, but quickly released on bail, despite the horror and loss his schemes caused, including the brutal murder of his own parents. Lee Han now lives a quiet life, married to a former idol, still surrounded by luxury. Story 2. Gone without a trace. The mystery of Xiao Dafu's family. This next story is more than just a tragedy rooted in greed or revenge. It's a warning about how far people will go for money, and how some lose their humanity entirely in the process. Some commit fraud with no remorse. Others kill without hesitation, and in doing so, they leave permanent scars on families, on communities, and on society itself. Let's take a journey back to a quiet morning in rural China. Chapter 1. The Disappearance. July 12th, 1994. Yangxing Town, Dezhou City, Sichuan Province. A man named Xiao Dafu, a construction worker from the nearby village of Jianu, left home for work just like any other day. But when he returned that evening, his home was eerily silent. His wife, Xia Shuajin, and their 2 sons Yang Yang and Yang Quan were gone. At first, Dafu didn't panic. He assumed his wife had taken the children to visit her parents. But when he hadn't heard from her by the next day, he started to worry. That morning, a neighbor named Mrs. Ma mentioned something strange. Suajin had borrowed her white plastic sandals, saying she was going to the market. Her sons had insisted on tagging along. That detail changed everything. Dafu quickly ate breakfast and cycled to his in-laws' house, hoping to find them there. But no one had seen Shuajin or the boys. He asked everyone he could, relatives, friends, market vendors still. No one knew where they were. Then a fellow villager named Gao Yuanqui shared a clue. On the day they disappeared, he'd seen the two boys sitting on a bench by the road near the market. He offered to walk back with them to Jianu, but they told him they were waiting for their mother. That was the last anyone saw of them. Chapter 2. Rumors, suspicions, and silence. Guided by Gao's story, Dafu and his relatives searched the area near the bench. They came up empty. But soon, villagers began whispering that certain local families had shady past people who had once been suspected of abducting children. Dafu took his suspicions to the police. One man in particular stood out, Hu Jijin, a villager known as Pu-san. Rumors had long followed him. The police searched his home top to bottom, but found nothing. No clues, no evidence, just silence. With no proof of kidnapping, the case was downgraded to a voluntary disappearance. And that's where it stalled. In rural China during the 1990s, cases like this weren't uncommon. People left home often, sometimes for work, sometimes for good. Police couldn't spare many resources for every disappearance. But Dafu knew something was wrong, and he wasn't about to give up. Chapter 3. Grief without closure. Unable to focus on work, Dafu spent his days cycling from town to town, searching for his family. Hope turned to despair. He even began to suspect his in-laws of hiding something, but they too were devastated. Shuijin's sister said she often dreamed of her sister's return. Over time, the pain took its toll. Dafu's mother fell ill and passed away, overcome by grief. His father, equally heartbroken, would walk to places where the boys used to play, hoping somehow they'd return. One day, he slipped off a small bridge, suffered internal injuries, and later died. What was once a peaceful, ordinary family was shattered by something unthinkable. Eventually, Dafu accepted the worst. In the family genealogy, he made two heartbreaking entries. 1994, Yang, taken by mother, disappeared. 1994, Yang Quan, taken by mother, disappeared. But fate wasn't finished with him yet. Chapter 4. The cold years passed. Then, one morning, in 2012, Dafu got a call from the local police. They believed they had found his son. He was stunned, confused, hopeful, afraid to believe it. On September 8, 2012, while working as a laborer in Guangdong province, Dafu dropped everything. Though usually frugal, he bought a plane ticket and flew straight home. At the police station, he met a young man who looked eerily familiar. The resemblance was undeniable. His face mirrored Dafu's, and his chin looked exactly like Suijin's. DNA confirmed it. This was his eldest son. Yang. Chapter 5. Memory and horror. But Yang remembered very little. He'd been only 7 when he was taken. Over time, memories faded, but the trauma hadn't. He shared what he did recall. That day, he and his younger brother had gone to the market with their mother. At some point, a man in a roadside shop waved at Suijin. She entered the shop, and the boys waited outside. Loud music began to play. Curious, the boys entered, and what they saw was horrifying. Their mother was pinned to the ground by a man. Another pulled out a syringe and injected something into her head. She struggled violently, but the man on top of her pulled a knife and stabbed her in the back again and again. The boys were locked in a dark basement under the shop. Yang tried to escape through a window with his brother, but they were caught. After that, it all went black. He remembered being taken on a train, a long journey ending in Fujian province. There, his brother Yang Quan was taken away by a stranger and never returned. Yang was then sent to live with a man named Su Jinchi, who became his adoptive father. His name was changed to Su Yang. Chapter 6. A new identity and the long search. Growing up, Su Yang always knew something wasn't right. He sensed he didn't belong. He remembered vague details. His real father used to wear a suit and ride a bicycle to work. His mother worked the fields and raised pigs. It was a simple life, but filled with warmth. In secret, Su Yang began keeping a diary. He pasted photos of himself from childhood to adulthood, hoping one day to find his real family. He never forgot his nickname, Yang Yang, from 2000 to 2005. He documented his life, quietly building the courage to search. After finishing middle school, Su Yang was sent to apprentice at a gemstone workshop in Guangdong. He earned just 300 yuan a month, barely enough for rent. He survived on instant noodles, alone, dreaming of home. He used every scrap of money to travel. He drew pictures from memory images of his mother's final moments and traveled to provinces like Jiangsu and Hunan, trying to find something familiar. During Chinese New Year 2012, a friend invited him to Longcheng County in Sichuan. Something about it felt right. Chapter 7. Coming home, that's when everything clicked. After making contact with local authorities, the pieces fell into place. Su Yang was finally identified as Yun, and he was reunited with his father after nearly 2 decades. But the story isn't over. What happened to his younger brother Yang, and who were the men who killed his mother? Even today, those questions remain unanswered. This case isn't just a tragedy. It's a haunting reminder of the darkness that greed can unleash and the incredible strength of a father's love. Despite loss, despite silence, despite decades of Panjiao, Dafu never gave up. Sometimes, hope really is the most powerful force of all. Sleep well, stay siphoned, until next time. You've been listening to The Crime Whisper, Chapter 8. Flavors, memories, and a hidden past. Sometimes, it's the smallest things that awaken the deepest memories. For Su, Young, formerly known as Yang Yang, it was 2 dishes while dining at a friend's home. The taste of Chinese sausage and watercress stirred something in him. These weren't just flavors. They were memories, scents, and sensations that pulled him back to his childhood. A flash of his mother's cooking. A moment from a lifelong lost. In that instant, Su Yang felt certain his birth family must have been from Sichuan province. With this new realization, Su Yang turned to the internet. He registered on the Baby Come Home website, a volunteer-run platform dedicated to reuniting missing children with their families. But his story was so incredible, so haunting, that many doubted it at first. When registering, he used the name Zhao, Yong, believing Zhao, or Zhao, was part of his real surname. He couldn't remember his mother's name, but he tried to offer the volunteers every detail he could recall, what he couldn't explain in words. He drew Chapter 9, a map of memory from scraps of childhood memory. Su Yang sketched a picture of the place he once called home. He drew scenes of Dragon Boat Festival, vivid images of races and celebrations that had burned themselves into his mind. He remembered a bamboo forest near his home, 2 ponds behind the house where he and his brother often played and fell in, a small bridge just beyond, stretching across a stream where they'd catch fish and crabs on their way to school. He drew his second aunt's house, right next to theirs. He remembered falling into the muddy water so many times his mother would scold him, even as she laughed. Using these memory fragments, the volunteers began searching through missing persons records across Sichuan. But 18 years had passed. Landscapes had changed. Villages had been rebuilt. Roads renamed. Homes demolished. It was like trying to find a single page from a burned book. To help jog his memory, volunteers took Su Yang back to Sichuan. He mentioned hearing his mother talk about a place called G Street in childhood. That detail led the team to Beiyu Town in Dezhou City. They visited village after village, asking about any mother and 2 sons who had vanished in the early 90s. No one remembered. The trail felt colder with every passing day. Chapter 10. The call that changed everything. After 7 days of searching, Su Yang returned, heartbroken, to Pushan City, Fujian Province. As a final effort, he reached out to his adoptive father, hoping for any clue about his abduction. Then, just when hope seemed lost, the phone rang. It was a middle-aged woman from Quezon County in Sichuan Province. Her name was Xiao Sixing, and she had seen the article about Su Yang's search online. She believed this young man could be her long-lost son, Wang Shao, who had gone missing in October 1993. Her story was eerily similar. After school one day, her son disappeared without a trace. Despite exhaustive searches and police reports, he was never found. But after more questions and background checks, both sides realized something critical. Su Yang wasn't her son. Instead, he might be the missing child from a Shao family in Yangqing town. That's when everything changed. The volunteers contacted the Yangqing police, who quickly confirmed the shocking truth. The Zhao family in nearby Tranquil village had indeed lost a mother and two sons nearly 2 decades earlier. Chapter 11. Homecoming. News of the discovery spread quickly. On September 11, 2012, the entire village of Zhangkou gathered at the entrance to welcome back the son they had long believed lost forever. After 2 agonizing hours of waiting, a car pulled up. Su Yang stepped out, tears already falling. The sound of firecrackers echoed through the village road, but Su Yang couldn't speak. He stood, frozen, overwhelmed, staring at his aged father, Xiao Diafu. No words were needed. The tears said it all. Later, in the family home, Dafu took Su Yang into a quiet room. There, he gently laid out 2 worn photographs, pictures of a happier time. One was of Su Yang with his mother. The other was with his younger brother. Su Yang wept uncontrollably. So did Dafu. But behind all the emotion, Dafu was haunted by one question. The question he hadn't dared ask until now. Chapter 12. The truth revealed. Once the reunion ceremony ended, Dafu finally asked, voice trembling, "Son, ... back then, how did your mother leave?" Su Yang paused. He knew this moment would come in silence. He pulled out the drawings he had made years ago, illustrations of a horrific memory he'd never been able to forget. The day he watched his mother attacked, injected, and stabbed in that shop near the market. He told his father everything. As Dafu listened, his face hardened. Then came a deep breath, a pause filled with unbearable weight, and in a voice full of pain, but also conviction, he said, "Son, I will find your brother, and I will find your mother." Final chapter. Truth unearthed. For Xiao Dafu, the reunion with his son brought both overwhelming relief and a fresh wound, because one truth remained buried deeper than all others. Where were his wife and younger son? And so, that very afternoon, Dafu took Yang, now Su Yang, to the Quezon County Police Bureau. The goal: to file an official report based on Yang's memories and help reopen the investigation into what had happened. 18 years ago, police reviewed Yang's drawings, statements, and time. They quickly verified that this was a case of kidnapping. But with Yang's mother, Shuaqin, and his little brother Yongquan still missing and no evidence of their fate, officers knew they'd need much more to uncover the full horror of what had occurred. So they began with the only lead they had, tracking the traffickers. On September 13th, 2012, 2 investigators traveled with Yang to Puxian City in Fujian Province. Their destination, a remote village called Heji, where Su Jinqi, the man who had raised Yang, was living. When questioned, Su Jinqi was cold and evasive. He claimed it had been nearly 20 years since he'd seen the man who brought the child to him. He insisted he couldn't even remember the trafficker's face. With no cooperation from Su, Yang tried speaking with other villagers, but they, too, were reluctant, speaking in vague terms, clearly unwilling to get involved. Frustrated, the investigators requested assistance from the local police. Yang remembered being kept in another man's house for a short time before being handed off to Su. That house, he recalled, had a loft and upstairs, a small temple shrine. From the loft, he had seen villagers come and go to worship. Finally, under pressure, Su Jinchi agreed to help. A shrine, a name, and a crime. Su led police to a nearby village called Gang in Beitu town. He identified the house. It had changed over the years, rebuilt as a multi-story building. But that upstairs shrine, still there, just as Yang had described it. The house belonged to a man named Wang Zun. When questioned, Wang admitted he had once given the child to Su Jinchi for adoption. But when asked about the kidnapping itself, he remained silent. Investigators decided to shift focus. Through a search of Wang Zhen's family, they uncovered a disturbing pattern. His wife was also originally from Quezon County and she too had been kidnapped as a child, later married off to Wang. She remembered the name of her abductor, a man called Pan Nai. Further digging revealed his real name, Zhang Guoxian, aged 58. From the same hometown as Zhang Yong, Zhang had already served 6 years in prison for child trafficking. He had 2 accomplices back then, one of them, Pu, Jijian, also known as Pu. San He was the very same man Xiao Dafu had suspected 18 years ago. The arrests and the confession police moved quickly. Zhang was arrested without resistance. Then they headed for Pio's house. Now 51 years old, Pu finally broke down during questioning. He admitted that he had been responsible for kidnapping the 2 brothers, Yang and Yang Quan, but he refused to say anything about their mother, Shua Qin. Instead, he gave up a third, named Liao Dingyi, the final suspect. Police rushed to Liao's home, but he had already fled. Using family connections, police tracked him to a neighboring town. Liao had been hiding in the home of one of Pu's relatives. He was arrested on the spot. Inside the interrogation room, Liao looked tired and broken. He quietly said, "I want to ask the government for leniency. I'll confess everything." And so he did. 18 years ago, in early July 1994, Liao, struggling financially, went to Pu to borrow money. But Pu had something else in mind. He offered a plan they had discussed before, kidnapping. They could snatch a child, sell him, and split the money. If they couldn't find a child alone, Pu proposed something even darker. If the child is with their mother, kill the adult, then take the children. On July 12, 1994, they saw their opportunity. Shua Qin was walking past Pu's shop with her 2 sons. Pu greeted her casually and asked if she could help deliver a message to someone in Jiangkou village. Trusting her neighbor, she followed him inside. To cover the sounds of the crime, Liao turned the cassette player to full volume. The music attracted Yang and Yang Quan, who followed their mother into the back room. Inside, Liao grabbed Shua Qin and began to strangle her. She fought violently. Then, Pu pulled out a knife and stabbed her. After the murder, the brothers were locked in the basement. A week later, Pu contacted human trafficker Zhang. The boys were shipped out first to Beijing, then to Fujian. As for Shua Qin, her body was dismembered. Pu and Liao buried her in 3 plastic bags behind Pu's house in a vegetable garden. Excavating the truth on February 28, 2013, police brought Pu back to Baotu Street, where his shop once stood. Residents crowded around as word spread that the mystery might finally be solved. The garden behind the bicycle repair shop had changed, but police began digging meticulously. Pu had confessed that in 2008, he had exhumed 2 of the 3 bags and burned them in a corner of the courtyard. Police sifted through every inch of soil, washing each piece of bone fragment, every clump of ash. Among the debris, they found a suspected human skull, fragment-burned pieces of plastic bags, a rope, likely used in the dismemberment. They also uncovered animal bones, pig and chicken butt. No conclusive proof that the victim had been buried there. There, last hope, the 3rd bag, the one Pu claimed he had not burned. the bag that might finally, after 18 long years, reveal the truth. This case isn't just about greed or betrayal. It's about the darkest corners of humanity where lives are sold, innocence is murdered, and families are torn apart. And yet, even here, there is something else. There is resilience, a child's memory, a father's unwavering love, a journey across provinces and decades, sparked by a simple meal and a flicker of recognition. The search for justice isn't over. But one thing is clear, the dead may be buried, but the truth never stays silent. This is the Crime Whisper. Sleep carefully tonight, and remember, sometimes it's not just the monsters we should fear, but the neighbors who seem the most ordinary. Story to conclusion. The final burial though, Pujijian confessed, when asked to point out where the third bag containing Shua Chin's remains was buried. He claimed he couldn't recall after all. It had been 18 years. Faced with this uncertainty, investigators made a bold decision. They would excavate the entire vegetable garden, digging 3 feet deep throughout. Hours into the operation, they unearthed a melted plastic sandalet's sole still faintly white. By nightfall, they found what they had hoped and feared to uncover, a black plastic bag filled with bones. Once assembled, the remains were confirmed to be the lower half of a human body. DNA testing later verified the victim as Shua Chin. Justice, at last, had a name and a body, but the story wasn't over. Finding young Quan Shua Chin's other son, Xiao Yang Quan, was still missing. Police returned to Pushin City, Fujian province, determined to trace his path. With human trafficker Wang Zhen's cooperation, they followed the trail. Yang Quan, it turned out, had been sold 3 separate times. First, to a man named Safa, for 7,500 yuan tilde, $1,100 then. When the child wouldn't stop crying, Safa resold him at a lower price finally. A man named Wu purchased him, renaming him Wu Jinfan. Police arrived at the Wu residence. Jinfa was working in Beijing, but after confirming identities through photographs, they helped Yang connect with his long-lost brother. On March 20th, 2013, the brothers finally reunited in Sichuan. It had taken 19 years. Justice delivered in August 2014. The Duo City Intermediate People's Court issued its judgment. Pujijin, death sentence for intentional homicide and child trafficking. Liao Dingyi, life imprisonment. Both were ordered to pay 59,897 yuan, $7,500 in civil compensation. April 20th, 2015. The Sichuan Provincial High People's Court upheld the ruling. That November, human trafficker Zhang Guoxian was sentenced to 11 years in prison and fined 10,000 yuan, $1,500. Life after the storm. Reunited. The family couldn't live under the same roof. Yang Yong returned to work at a gemstone workshop in Suzhiyangquan State. In Beijing, their father, Xiao Dafu, moved back to Jiangsu village with his new wife. Raising ducks and farming to survive, they had found one another again. But the life they lost 18 years ago could never truly be recovered. Story 3. The Mannequin Factory Murders. August 1967, Taipei's Wanhua District. A man, soaked in sweat, staggered into the local police station. His name, Zhang Jing'an. His words would send a chill through the room. Last night, I was forced to help bury 2 bodies. He claimed that Wang Wengshen, owner of a mannequin factory called Chekai Art Garden, had murdered both his wife and an apprentice. Zhang insisted the bodies were buried beneath the factory basement. The officers, understandably, were skeptical. The idea that human bodies might be hidden inside a factory filled with artificial ones sounded like something from a horror film. And in one of Taipei's busiest commercial areas, it seemed absurd. More alarming was Zhang's demeanor. He didn't seem well. For a man confessing to a crime, he was too eager, too unstable. Still, police couldn't ignore a claim like this. The factory of false face Shekhyard Garden was a 4-story building, ground floor and basement. The mannequin, factory 2nd floor, beauty salon 3rd and 4th floors, residential apartments according to neighboring businesses. The factory rarely closed even on holidays. That's why, 2 days earlier, when Wang Wengshan suddenly hung a sign reading "Closed today," it struck everyone as suspicious. When police arrived, reporters were already gathered outside. After getting no answer, they broke in. The first floor showed nothing unusual, just a display of 6 mannequins. But when they descended to the basement, the scene was unnerving. Mannequin parts lay scattered, arms, legs, heads, while the air reeked of isomyl alcohol, a chemical used in plastic molding. At first, police wondered if Zheng had been hallucinating. Could he have mistaken plastic limbs for human ones? Still, he insisted the truth lay beneath the concrete. Beneath the surface, the concrete floor seemed undisturbed until a detective noticed something strange in the bathroom, a pile of recently dug soil. Upstairs, under the display window, they found cement and sand materials unrelated to mannequin production. That was enough to warrant a full excavation. Workers began chipping away at the basement floor. Just 8 inches deep, they found a fabric glove, tension mounted at around 28 inches deep. Bane-covered strands of human hair. Then came the unmistakable stench of decomposition. At 11 p.m., they pulled out the first body, a woman with no external injuries. 30 minutes later, the second body, a young man, face bruised, neck marked with clear signs of strangulation. The victims were identified as Su Wan, Wang's wife, and Chen Guang, an 18-year-old apprentice. Both had died 2 days earlier. One odd detail lingered. Su Wan's head had been shaved. The suspect vanishes by the time police confirmed the murders. It was too late. Wang Wengshan had vanished. Rumors swirled that he stood in the crowd during the excavation, disguised, watching as police unearthed his crimes. If true, it was a devastating oversight for law enforcement. A warrant was issued immediately. Secrets of the past. Wang was 31, uneducated but gifted, renowned in Taiwan's fashion scene for his realistic mannequins. His wife Su Wan was a year younger. Their marriage, though blessed with 3 children, had long been troubled. The male victim, Chen Guang, had nearly completed his apprenticeship. At first, police found few clues until they spoke with Guang's family. He had told them Wang accused him of having an affair with Su Wan. He had even been beaten over the accusation. When questioned, Wang's sister revealed a disturbing backstory. Years ago, while Wang was in military service, Su Wan had an affair with a pharmacist, a man who later convinced her to drug her husband with something that would leave him impotent. Wang spent years consulting doctors, not knowing what had happened to him. Eventually, Su Wan confessed. He reported the pharmacist, who was punished by law, but the trauma never left him. Then, in August, Su Wan shaved her head after a heated argument. 3 days later, she was dead. So was the apprentice, the accomplice's truth. But what about Zhang Jing'an, the man who confessed? At first he claimed Wang had threatened him into helping bury the bodies, but under intense scrutiny, he changed his story. He admitted Wang had offered him money. He'd agreed willingly. Later, overcome by guilt, he went to police. Further investigation revealed Zhang had suffered a traumatic brain injury in a car crash years earlier, affecting his mental stability. He was functional, but prone to distorted thinking. Zhang and Wang were also related by marriage, explaining why Wang may have trusted him. That raised a serious question. If Zhang's mind wasn't sound, how reliable was his confession? And more urgently, where was Wang Wengshan now? Even more crucial now was capturing when Minhee held the key to unraveling the entire case. Initially, the police were so confident they would catch him that they didn't even issue a reward. But as their investigation expanded from Taipei to Taikang with no success, Frustration grew. Just as the trail seemed to go cold, a new lead emerged. A man named Yang Gangquan rushed into the police station, reporting his wife Lu Wang missing. He strongly believed she had run away with Wen Min. The two families had known each other through business dealings. Zhang's family owned a wig shop that frequently collaborated with Wen Min's mannequin factory. Yang had two compelling reasons for suspecting Wen Min. They had both disappeared on the same day, and neighbors had seen Lu Wang ride off on Wen Min's motorcycle. Lu Wang, a 30-year-old mother of 5, had taken her ID and some cash, suggesting she left willingly. When police searched Wen Min's belongings, they found intimate photographs of Lu Wang, apparently taken with her consent. It was clear this wasn't a kidnapping. Lu Wang had chosen to flee with him. Now, police were no longer tracking just a fugitive murderer, but a couple on the run. Throughout August, Wen Min and Lu Wang's escape dominated headlines. Rumors about their whereabouts spread across Taiwan. Authorities had assumed a small amount of money they took, about 5,000 NTD, would soon force them into the open. They even warned the public that aiding the fugitives was a criminal offense. Still, no solid leads emerged. Then, on August 16th, police intercepted a letter Wen Min sent to his father. On the front, written in Chinese, he pleaded for help, asking his father to give Lu Wang 2,000 NTD for living expenses. But on the back, in Japanese language, Lu Wang couldn't read. He wrote, "Don't send the money." The deception was clear. Hoping to drive a wedge between them, the police released the letter publicly. They also allowed Yang Gangquan to publish an open letter in the newspaper, begging his wife to return and promising forgiveness. Their eldest daughter even wrote her own letter. "Mom, my sister and brother are crying. I miss you so much." But these emotional appeals had no effect. The couple remained hidden, and public confidence in the police began to wane. On August 24th, police finally offered a 30,000 NTD reward, about $750 for information leading to Wen Min's arrest. But people criticized the old photo police released of Lu Wang. It no longer resembled her slimmer present-day appearance. In a surprising twist, police revealed that Wen Min suffered from a rare illness requiring him to drink herbal tea regularly during summer. This tidbit sparked a frenzy. Herbal tea stalls across Taiwan were suddenly packed with people hoping to catch him for the reward. More than 160 tips flooded in, but none were useful. Then, on August 30th, everything changed. When Min sent a handwritten letter to United Daily News. In it, he detailed life as a fugitive and claimed he hadn't meant to kill his wife or the apprentice, Guang. He admitted to hitting his wife, but insisted her death resulted from untreated injuries, not murder. He promised that if the newspaper published his letter, he and Lu Wang would surrender. The newspaper complied, and the next evening, August 31st, when Min and Lu Wang turned themselves in at the police station. Holding hands, they walked through the front door. Photos showed them looking clean and composed, not like fugitives. During their time on the run, they had been hiding in plain sight in a small house near the Nanmen police station. When Min even sold herbal tea, wearing a straw hat in disguise right under everyone's noses. With their surrender, police finally breathed a sigh of relief. But the case was far from over. During interrogation, when Min admitted to beating his wife, Su Wan, which led to her death. But he denied killing the apprentice Guan. Instead, he accused Jing Gun, the man who had initially reported the murders. According to Wen Min, on July 24th, he discovered 2,000 NTD missing and suspected his wife. During his search, he found a bottle of perfume and assumed it was a gift from a lover. Enraged, he tied up Su Wan, beat her, and cut her hair. She was seriously injured and bedridden. On July 31st, Guan brought her food. When Min saw them whispering and assumed they were having an affair, he beat Guan as well and tied him up. During this time, Suwon reportedly asked Gwon to help her seek help from outside when Min overheard this and exploded with rage. Gwon told Won Min he was innocent, and that the real affair had been with Jingin's brother. Jingin, present at the time, denied it and accused Gwon instead. He then attacked Gwon violently, and Suwon's attempt to stop the fight only enraged Won Min further. Both victims ended up dead, fearing the consequences. When Min and Jingin buried the bodies together, Won Min claimed he acted with Jingin throughout, but never expected Jingin would go to the police. However, Won Min's version contradicted Jingin's earlier statement. Jingin said he was coerced only into helping bury the bodies, not committing the murders. Forensic evidence showed Gwon died of strangulation, not beatings, as Won Min claimed. This raised serious doubts. On October 18, 1967, the Taipei District Court began the trial. Won Min insisted both deaths were accidental, but the evidence, particularly the strangulation marks, painted a different picture. Story 3. The final verdict. The final twist in the Grimchayard Garden murders came down to one key question: did the whistleblower Jingin actually kill the apprentice Gwon? In its initial ruling, the Taipei District Court concluded that both Sujuan and Gwon had been murdered by the factory owner, Wang, and men. They believed Wang, consumed by jealousy and paranoia over a suspected affair between the two, had acted with murderous intent. Jingin, the man who had reported the crime, was deemed to have been coerced into helping bury the bodies and was declared innocent. He walked free, but the prosecutor wasn't satisfied. The case went into a years-long legal back-and-forth. Over the next 9 years, Jingin's verdict fluctuated: guilty, then innocent, and back again. It wasn't until March 16, 1976, that Taiwan's Supreme Court issued a final decision. Jingin was guilty of murder. The verdict hinged on two damning pieces of evidence. First, Jingin had reportedly told fellow inmates in Taipei prison, "I wish murder only got you life. Gwon was too nosy, so I strangled him." Second, the court questioned Jingin's actions on the night of the crime. He had numerous chances to flee, yet stayed until the bodies were buried. He only escaped once the job was done. To the judges, this suggested complicity, not coercion. The final sentence: life in prison for Jing'an. As for Wang and Min, his death sentence had never changed. 4 days after the final ruling, he was executed by firing squad. But by then, public interest had shifted from the murderer to the woman who had fled with him. People were obsessed with Lu Wang. Why would a mother of 5 abandon her family to run away with a man who had just killed his wife? The truth was less mysterious than it seemed. Wang and Lu had known each other since childhood. They had once been sweethearts. Despite marrying Gangquan, Lu's marriage had been deeply unhappy. When Wang came to her that night, desperate and on the run, she didn't hesitate. She grabbed her ID, some cash, and followed him into the unknown. Their tragic love story only added another haunting layer to an already harrowing case. Story 4. The perfect crime that failed by 2006. Lu Haiping's demands had grown bolder. No longer content with secret visits and minor luxuries, she wanted security, a job transfer, a 1,400 square foot luxury apartment, and the latest model car. Once again, Duan Ehi, her longtime lover and a powerful political figure, abused his position to grant her request. But even that wasn't enough. Haiping's greed wasn't rooted in vanity. It was a bitter reaction to years of being hidden, locked away in silence and secrecy. She was tired of being the woman in the shadows. She wanted status, legitimacy, marriage. She no longer wanted to sneak around for hurried 10 p.m. visits. She wanted Ehi to choose her publicly, but Ehi never saw her as more than a fleeting affair. He had no intention of leaving his wife, nor of elevating Haiping to the position she craved. Their arguments grew increasingly toxic. Desperate and furious, Hyping began to use their secret relationship as leverage, threatening to expose him. That threat lit a fire under EHI. In his eyes, Hyping had become ungrateful. After all he had done for her, housing, cars, jobs for her family, she dared to blackmail him. He started seeing her not as a former lover, but as a liability, a threat to his carefully crafted image. And soon, his fear of exposure twisted into something darker, the desire to eliminate her. He needed someone discreet, loyal and ruthless. He turned to a man he believed he could control, his nephew-in-law, Chen Ji. Chen owed everything to He, who had helped him secure his job as a deputy team leader in the city's public security bureau. That loyalty, reinforced by blood and favors, made Chen the perfect pawn. During a family visit in early 2007, He tested the waters. He confided in Chen Ji, sharing his fear and frustration over Hyping. Chen didn't hesitate. He offered to solve the problem. Their first idea was to stage a traffic accident, but Hyping's daily routes were too slow, crowded with pedestrians. The risk of failure and exposure was too high. So Chen, once a military engineer, proposed something bolder, a car bomb, a perfect plan. They thought quick, lethal, untraceable. Eshi provided the necessary details. Hyping's address, her schedule, even spare car keys. Chen tapped his underground network and secured military-grade explosives. Then, with the help of a friend in Chongbin, a 40-year-old garage owner skilled in remote control systems, they began building the device in secret. Their tests were terrifyingly successful. The final bomb contained 2 kilograms of TNT and could be detonated remotely. It would tear through metal and flesh in seconds. But as the reality of the plan set in, a flicker of doubt appeared in Chen Ji. The idea of taking a life with the push of a button started to haunt him. Yet pressure from Echi kept mounting. By July 2007, there was no turning back. July 9th, 2007, Chen Ji and Qin Chongbing drove a police vehicle to the area where Hyping worked. They spotted her light blue Honda. With trembling hands, they used the spare key to open the door and placed the bomb under the driver's seat. Then they left the scene and waited. But something went wrong. They lost sight of Hyping. Panicked, Chen Ji drove to Jina Road, a route Hyping often took. There, hidden in the crowd, they waited. Qin mingled with locals, even asking a nearby elderly woman, "Is the real residential community up ahead?" His nervous tone and unfamiliar accent caught her attention. Moments later, Hyping's Honda appeared. At that instant, Qin signaled. Chen Ji, sitting in the parked police car with the remote detonator, pressed the button. The explosion shattered the street. Hyping died instantly. A nearby fruit vendor was also injured by flying debris. Her body was torn apart, and chaos erupted. Smoke, screams, sirens. It was carnage. But in the midst of the panic, that observant elderly woman noticed something odd. The same nervous man who had spoken to her moments earlier was now sprinting away straight into a police car. She didn't forget that detail, and neither did the investigators. The fallout, justice for a murder disguised as chaos, swirled around the crime scene. One detail seemingly minor would crack the case wide open. A sharp-eyed, elderly woman who had noticed the nervous man questioning her moments before the blast did something incredible. She jotted down the license plate number of the police vehicle he jumped into. That note would become the linchpin in uncovering a web of lies, corruption, and murder. By July 13th, Duan Etith, powerful government official at the heart of it, all was quietly taken from his office. Within just 1 hour of questioning, he broke. He confessed to everything: the affair, the threats, the plot, and his role in orchestrating the murder. But his confession didn't stop there. He handed over a list, a long one, of his political contacts, influence networks, and financial dealings, and it was damning in court. It was revealed that Duan Echi had used his position to illegally obtain 1.69 million yuan in cash, roughly $250,000 USD, along with another 1.33 million yuan tilde, $195,000 USD, in assets of unclear origin. The car bomb murder had not just exposed a personal tragedy, it had pulled back the curtain on systemic corruption within local government. But this wasn't just Eki's story. In her final days, Lu Haiping wasn't blind. She'd sensed what was coming. Her instincts had sharpened from years in the shadows. Before her death, she told her family something chilling. If I die, it will be Duan Ehi who killed me. Ehi had believed he could control the narrative that the explosion could be passed off as a tragic accident caused by summer heat and a faulty fuel tank. What he didn't realize was that his fall from power was only 59 days away. After his arrest, Effie remained surprisingly calm. He thought his cooperation might earn him leniency, maybe even a comfortable retirement after a short prison term. Instead, his candidness only deepened the public's revulsion. In the interrogation room, each of the three conspirators showed a different face to justice. Qin Chongbing, the garage owner and bomb technician, broke down. He pleaded for mercy, citing his hesitation in wiring the final device as proof of his reluctant conscience. Chen Ji, the nephew-in-law and executioner of the plan, painted himself as a man forced into a corner, coerced, pressured, and without a choice. Duan Eti, the mastermind, stunned everyone with his cold honesty. When asked by the prosecutor whether he regretted the crime or would change anything, he said, "I do regret it, but only for choosing explosives. If I could do it again, I would still kill her, just with a different method." That wasn't all. He revealed that the bomb plot wasn't his first attempt. He had tried poisoning her gas line, tampering with her tires for a highway accident each time. Fate had intervened. Once Haiping's car had a flat tire before even leaving the driveway, and Eshi had to step in and help fix it, hiding the very plan he had orchestrated. In the end, the court rendered its verdict. Duan Eti and Chen Ji were sentenced to death. Qin Chongbing was sentenced to life imprisonment. The tragic saga between Duan Eti and Lu Haiping exposed a painful truth. A 30-year age gap wasn't just a number, it was a divide in power, purpose, and expectation. Unselfish love fuses with unchecked authority. The result is not romance. It's catastrophe. Episode title: The Frozen Secret. The Suzhou refrigerator murder on March 9, 2023. A routine visit turned into a chilling nightmare. Jia Dongle's mother had come to her daughter's apartment in Yanjian District, Suzhou, to help tidy up. While cleaning the bedroom, she noticed the refrigerator in the corner, covered in clutter and sealed with tape. Curious and unaware of what lay ahead, she decided to clean it. After clearing the top shelf of frozen meats, she moved to the bottom and discovered a horrifying sight. The frozen, curled-up body of her son-in-law, Fan, hung missing for over 15 months. Paralyzed with fear, she fled the room and immediately called her daughter. When Jia returned and saw the panic on her mother's face, she quietly confessed she had murdered her husband and hidden his body in the fridge. Urged by her mother, Jia called the police and turned herself in. The news of the refrigerator murder spread like wildfire across Chinese social media, shocking the entire nation. Once considered an ordinary couple, Jia and Fan's life story unraveled into a disturbing tale of financial deception, emotional detachment, and a cold-blooded murder. Fan Hongwu was born in 1991 in Henan Province, the second of three brothers from a modest family. His parents, who once sold pancakes from a street cart, had invested everything into their children's education. Fan rose to become the family's pride, gaining admission to Suzhou University. After struggling with career choices, he eventually entered the real estate industry in 2015, a move that paid off handsomely during Suzhou's property boom. By By 2016, he met Gia 2 years younger, quiet and introverted. Despite her distant demeanor, their relationship blossomed, and in 2017, they officially became a couple. Fans showered her with affection, documenting their love online and celebrating milestones. But while fans' posts painted a picture of devotion, Gia remained emotionally detached, both online and in real life. They married in 2020 after Gia became pregnant. Fans' love deepened with fatherhood. He sold their home to start a business and provide for the family. But as the pandemic hit, his business collapsed and the family's finances deteriorated. Unbeknownst to him, Gia had developed an obsession, live streaming and sending virtual gifts to male streamers, spending hundreds of thousands of yuan in secret. Gia claimed these were VIP gifts meant to boost her online ranking and secure influence. But it was a lie. She fell victim to scams, borrowed money, and secretly drained the family's finances. When Fan discovered the debt, it was already too late. He sold their house to cover the losses, but tension and arguments followed. In November 2021, Fan made a final visit to his hometown. By December, he vanished. Gia told everyone that Fan had fled to escape creditors. For 15 months, she maintained a digital illusion, updating his social media, sending text replies, and even sharing his supposed location. Meanwhile, she borrowed money from Fan's mother, his brother, and even her own parents, totaling around 370,000 yuan, over $50,000. But Fan's body was already sealed in the refrigerator. Police suspicions were slow to grow due to Gia's convincing cover-up. She claimed to be raising their daughter alone, and even reassured Fan's parents during family visits. But cracks appeared. She moved apartments suddenly, took only the refrigerator and a TV, and refused to explain her reasons. Then came March 9th, 2023. Gia's mother, in her attempt to clean the old apartment, unknowingly uncovered the body. An autopsy later revealed that Fan had died from drug and carbon monoxide poisoning. Gia admitted she killed him during a family dispute, but revealed no deeper motive. Authorities, however, found more. The money Gia stole had been spent on live streamers, especially one male musician based in Suzhou. She became a top-ranking fan, achieving the platform's Duke status, which required roughly 300,000 yuan in spending. The streamer publicly denied knowing she was married, but her obsessive engagement raised disturbing questions. Chillingly, even after the murder, Gia continued to post cheerful videos and selfies, creating an online persona of peace and reflection while living in a home with her husband's corpse just feet away. On December 21st, 2023, the Suzhou Intermediate People's Court tried Gia Dongle for intentional homicide and fraud. Fan's family demanded the maximum penalty. Gia's confession may not spare her from executionist, especially given the premeditated nature of the crime, her long-term deception, and complete lack of remorse. As the public awaits the court's final verdict, the Suzhou refrigerator murder has become a symbol of how digital obsession, financial deceit, and emotional detachment can culminate in one of the most disturbing domestic crimes in recent memory.